In the great chess game of nations, information has always been the most powerful piece. Knowing what an adversary is planning, where their forces are, and what they are building can mean the difference between victory and defeat. For much of the 20th century, the task of gathering this vital information fell to a special kind of aircraft. These were not bombers, designed to destroy. They were not fighters, built for dogfights in the sky. They were reconnaissance planes, the eyes of the military. Specifically, they were RF aircraft, or reconnaissance fighters. They were fast, they were elusive, and honestly their only weapon was a camera. Their mission was simple but incredibly dangerous. Fly over enemy territory, see everything, and come back with the truth. These planes were often modified versions of famous fighter jets. An F-4 Phantom II, a powerful and feared fighter, could be transformed into an RF-4. Its guns and missiles were removed. In their place, a long nose was fitted, packed with a suite of sophisticated cameras and sensors. This change turned a warrior into a spy. The pilot of an RF aircraft had a unique and lonely job. He flew deep into hostile lands, often alone, with no way to fight back if discovered. His success was not measured in targets destroyed, but in feet of film exposed. The pictures he brought back would be pored over by intelligence analysts, revealing secrets that could change the course of a war. The importance of these aircraft cannot be overstated. Before the age of satellites and drones, they were the primary source of high-quality, up-to-the-minute intelligence. A general planning an offensive needed to know the enemy's defensive positions. A president facing a crisis needed to know if another country was preparing missiles. The answers were often found in the canisters of film carried by an RF-4 or an RF-5. These planes flew at the edge of what was technologically possible, and their pilots operated at the edge of human courage. They were the silent witnesses to history, capturing the hidden movements and secret preparations that defined the Cold War and other global conflicts. The story of RF aircraft is a story of innovation and adaptation. It is a tale of taking the fastest, most capable fighter jets of an era and repurposing them for a mission of intelligence, not destruction. The R in their designation stood for reconnaissance, but it could have just as easily stood for risk. Every mission was a gamble, a high-stakes flight into the unknown where the only goal was to see and survive. From the Cold War skies over Europe to the dense jungles of Southeast Asia, these aerial spies provided a clear-eyed view of a world shrouded in secrecy and suspicion. They were the unblinking eye in the sky, and the images they captured shaped the decisions of leaders and the fate of nations. The heart of any reconnaissance aircraft was its collection of cameras. Early on, these were large, mechanical wonders that used physical film. The RF-4 Phantom, for example, had a nose section that could house several different types of cameras at once. Some pointed straight down, creating a detailed map of the ground below. Others were angled to the side, known as oblique cameras, allowing the pilot to take pictures of targets without having to fly directly over them, which was much safer. There were even panoramic cameras that could sweep from horizon to horizon, capturing a vast swath of territory in a single pass. The pilot had to manage all of this equipment while flying at high speed and low altitude, a task that required immense skill and concentration. But seeing was not just about visible light. As technology advanced, so did the senses of these aircraft. They began to carry infrared sensor devices could detect heat, allowing them to see things that were invisible to a normal camera. And infrared trucks and tanks hidden under camouflage netting by spotting the heat from their engines. Location of underground bunkers or recently used airstrips. This gave intelligence analysts a whole new layer of information. The RF aircraft was no longer just taking pictures. It was mapping the hidden thermal landscape of the battlefield, exposing secrets that were meant to stay buried. Another critical piece of technology was side-looking airborne radar, or SLAR. This system was a game-changer. Unlike cameras, radar could see through clouds, fog, and the darkness of night. An aircraft equipped with SLAR could fly a mission in terrible weather and still come back with a detailed radar map of the ground. It worked by sending out radar pulses to the side of the aircraft's flight path and then building an image from the returning echoes. This meant a single plane could survey a huge area of land quickly and discreetly, no matter the conditions on the ground. The development of SLAR made aerial reconnaissance a 24-hour all-weather capability. The pilot's cockpit was the nerve center where all this technology came together. He had controls to operate the different sensors, monitors to see what they were capturing, and systems to ensure everything was working correctly. Flying a reconnaissance mission was a complex dance between piloting the aircraft and managing the intelligence-gathering equipment. The pilot had to fly a precise route at a specific altitude and speed to ensure the cameras and sensors could get the best possible images. It was a demanding job that combined the skills of a fighter pilot with those of a photographer and a technician. The technology was impressive, but it was the human in the cockpit who made it all work. The Vietnam War was a defining conflict for RF aircraft. The dense jungle canopy of Southeast Asia could hide entire armies. The Ho Chi Minh Trail, a complex network of roads and paths, was the main supply line for North Vietnamese forces. Finding and tracking movement along this trail was a top priority for the United States military. This task fell to pilots flying the RF-4C Phantom and the smaller RF-101 Voodoo. Day after day, they would fly dangerous low-level missions over North Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, dodging anti-aircraft fire and surface-to-air missiles. Their photographs were essential for planning bombing raids and trying to stop the flow of supplies to the south. One of the most famous and tense periods of the Cold War was the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. Before the high-altitude U-2 spy plane confirmed the presence of Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba, lower-flying reconnaissance aircraft, like the RF-8 Crusader and the RF-101, were already conducting missions over the island. These planes, flying fast and low, provided detailed, close-up images of the missile sites as they were being constructed. The photographs they brought back gave President John F. Kennedy the undeniable proof he needed to confront the Soviet Union. The pilots who flew these missions knew they could be the first shots in a nuclear war, but they flew anyway, providing the critical intelligence that helped the world step back from the brink. The RF-5 Freedom Fighter, a reconnaissance version of the popular F-5 jet, served with many Allied air forces around the world. It was a simpler, more agile aircraft than the larger RF-4. This made it ideal for nations that needed a capable reconnaissance platform without the complexity and cost of the bigger planes. During the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, both sides used reconnaissance aircraft to monitor each other's troop movements and military installations. The images gathered by planes like the RF-5 and the RF-4 provided vital battlefield intelligence, influencing strategic decisions on both sides of the long and brutal conflict. These aircraft proved that the need for a clear view of the enemy was universal. In the Middle East, reconnaissance fighters played a constant critical role. During the Yom Kippur War in 1973, Israeli Air Force RF-4E Phantoms flew daring missions deep into Egypt and Syria. They provided Israeli commanders with up-to-date information on the positions of Arab armies, their air defenses, and their supply lines. This intelligence was crucial in allowing Israel to counter the surprise attacks and eventually turn the tide of the war. These missions were incredibly dangerous, flown against some of the most heavily defended airspace in the world. The pilots of the RF-4S were celebrated as heroes, their work seen as essential to the nation's survival during its darkest hours. The era of the dedicated RF fighter jet, with a pilot flying deep into enemy territory with a film camera, has largely passed. The very success of these platforms helped drive the development of technologies that would eventually replace them. The risks were simply too high. Losing a pilot and a sophisticated aircraft on a single mission was a heavy price to pay for information. The military sought safer, more efficient ways to see behind enemy lines. This led to a technological revolution that has completely changed the face of intelligence gathering. The spirit of the RF-4 and RF-5 lives on, but in new and different forms that their pioneering pilots could have only dreamed of. Today, the primary tools of aerial reconnaissance are satellites and unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, more commonly known as drones. Satellites orbit high above the Earth, far beyond the reach of air defenses, providing persistent surveillance of almost any point on the globe. They can capture incredibly detailed images and intercept electronic signals without putting any human life at risk. Drones, like the RQ-4 Global Hawk or the MQ-9 Reaper, can fly for long hours over a target area, controlled by operators thousands of miles away. They carry advanced cameras, infrared sensors, and radar systems, just like the old RF planes, but they do so without a pilot in the cockpit. Even modern fighter jets have inherited the reconnaissance mission. Advanced targeting pods like the Lantern or Sniper pods can be attached to planes like the F-16 or FA-18. These pods contain high-resolution cameras and laser designators. A pilot can use them to identify a target, gather intelligence, and even guide a weapon to it, all in a single mission. This has blurred the lines between fighter, bomber, and reconnaissance aircraft. Every modern combat jet now has the ability to be an eye in the sky, a direct legacy of the specialized RF platforms that came before. The mission of seeing the battlefield has not disappeared. It has been distributed across the entire air fleet. The legacy of the RF reconnaissance aircraft is therefore one of profound importance. They were a bridge between the old world of visual scouting and the new world of digital networked intelligence. The pilots who flew them were pioneers, pushing the limits of their aircraft and their own endurance to bring back the truth. The information they gathered saved lives, influenced battles, and shaped international politics. While the specific airframes may now be in museums, their mission is more critical than ever. The unblinking eye in the sky continues its watch, now through the lens of a satellite, the sensor of a drone, or the targeting pod of a fighter jet, forever searching for clarity in a complex and uncertain